Great to have you here today, Wednesday. I didn't sleep through it this time. Dreams and visions. I think we've all had them. But let's look behind the curtain a little bit. Try to discern between a regular dream and a prophetic dream, or a vision from our mind and a vision from above. And today we have Elder Ray Boshers, who's going to start us off by sharing with us some recent visions that he has had and some of the ideas that he has behind them. I've really been looking forward to this, and I hope you have too. So, Ray, I'm going to call you on now, and we could get started. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank y'all for having me here. I got in touch with Jackson about a few visions that I'd had and just wanted to discuss them with him. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a backdrop before I had these. It's been probably a year ago. I had a dream. And in that dream, I was with other believers, but I couldn't see anyone. And then all of a sudden, it started to get very dark, and it felt very demonic, very oppressive. So as I was standing there, I prayed to Yahweh, and these are the words that I prayed. Quote, "We need your light of wisdom. Please send your light." At first, everything got kind of grayish, and then all of a sudden it got extremely bright. The light that started flowing was like a river, and it was crystal, and it was warm. I couldn't look into the light at all, but I could look down, and it was in that looking down that I could just barely crack open my eyes and that I could see it. And I just stood there in it, and everything was just totally driven away. And when I woke in this dream, what made it was so unusual that I was having problems seeing. My eyes, because of the brightness, I couldn't adjust to even not to the dark at all. So as I got myself back together, I laid back down, just thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, as I closed my eyes, I was there and I just saw it all over again. So I'm telling you that just because of, I think in some ways it may relate to some of the visions that I've had here recently, or at least I think they do. And while I was praying, the first one was I was standing during my time of prayer. I found myself, I was standing in front of a wall. And this was not like any ordinary wall. It was, when I looked up, it was so huge, it touched the sky. There was absolutely no way around it. As I looked to my right and left, it was just never ending. But I knew that I needed to go forward. I knew that I had to get around this wall. Something had to be done about it. And as I was looking at this wall, I felt this power, this force. And all of a sudden, the wall went from being 3 foot in front of me to just miles out, and it was gone. And as all of a sudden I noticed I was standing there, it was like I was on an overlook, and I could just see for miles and miles. Everything was beautiful. It was lush. The skies were a bright blue. But at the same time, there was absolutely no sign of life. There were no birds in the air. There was absolutely no human civilization as far as I could see. Now, what was on the other side of that wall as it went out, I couldn't see. The wall, like I said, the wall went totally out in the distance. I could only see for so far. But what really hit me with that was, like, excuse me, all three of those visions, and I'm going to talk to y'all about, when I came back, my heart was racing. It was just like I had actually been there and been pulled back. Let's see. We'll go with, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit because it's a little bit stranger. I want to go to the third one last. Then we'll come back to the second one. I was in prayer, like I said, concerning the others. And while I was praying, I was actually standing, and this time it was in more of a desert situation. It wasn't ugly. It was just very plain. It was still quite clear. There was nothing going on. But then all of a sudden I started hearing this laughter. And the laughter itself was nothing, not even closely remote to being human. But when I looked down, there was this woman standing there. She had jet black hair, and her eyes were a dull, lifeless black. And she was looking at me as if she knew me, but I've never seen this lady before in my life. I haven't even seen anything that would even bring her to my mind, not a picture or anything. And as she kept looking at me, she was laughing. Then all of a sudden she stopped. And when she stopped, she started speaking. And that's where this, whatever happened, it got to be different. Normally, I have no problems with hearing. I have absolutely no problems with reading while I'm dreaming. As a matter of fact, I've worked out all kind of problems. I figured out how to fix machines, how to fix cars, all like this through my dreams. I've been able to use them like that. But I couldn't understand the words she was saying. It was completely quiet. I could see her lips moving, but for once in my life, I couldn't even read lips. She reminded me, as I looked at her, of someone of Southwest descent, maybe Indian or Mexican. And maybe that was the reason why I couldn't read her lips. Maybe it was a language I just didn't understand. But she sat there and she just kept talking. And as she kept talking, she was looking at me. And all I could think was, this has no power. This has no authority. But this kind of bothered me because I've never, in my visions, and even in my dreams, or in some of my dreams, I know I have, they've been kind of confrontational, but nothing, especially in my visions, have ever been confrontational. I've always seen things, but there was something going on here in the spirit. Exactly what that may have been, I don't know. Like I said, it was really, this one caught me off guard. This is the first time it's ever happened to me. And I realized that when we talk about dreams, and probably even in visions, you know, you got the people, you know, can cross over in those barriers, and all of a sudden you can run up against someone. I've always heard that. I've never had that issue before. So whether I was used in this situation by Yahweh, maybe this lady was trying to call somebody or trying to curse someone. I know that another vision that I'd had many years ago, Yahweh had showed me that at times, as believers, we are used as shields for other people. And he keeps something from happening to someone else by placing us between them and whatever it is that's wanting to harm them. So maybe that may have been what it was. Like I said, this one, it was totally different than what anything I've ever experienced. The second one we'll go back to. In some ways, it goes back also, like the first one, back to the dream that I was telling you about. I'd been in deep prayer. Actually, I'd been praying just to be very upfront about holiness for myself, about trying to draw closer to Yahweh. Some of the studying that I've been doing I felt like has really helped me in my walk. And in this time of prayer, all of a sudden I was bathed in that light that I was telling y'all about. It was that I had in my dream. It was completely brilliant. There was no looking up. There was no looking down. As a matter of fact, I was prostrate, and I could hear talking. And in this talking, it would be like what some might call the divine counsel, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I was listening, and it seemed to me as if it was the voice of Yahweh and others talking to him. And I realized then when all I was hearing was that it was the final decisions being made on some certain things, and that things were going to happen. And it was in that moment that I wanted to pray that grace and mercy would be found, because it was terrifying me what I was hearing. But then when I went to pray, all I could pray was, your will be done. And as I was listening to it, and as I finished my prayer, it was like, Yahweh is really going to do this. There is no stopping this now. When I came out of that vision, I actually thought my heart was going to completely explode. It was like a Daniel moment. I actually had to go lay down. I could not function after that one happened. I was completely I was worthless for the next 3 to 4 hours. And that was all I could keep thinking, was that this is going to happen. But I cannot remember the conversation that they were talking about. Like I said, normally I remember those two, the last two, had things that normally don't happen to me. But that was what I was wanting to talk to Jackson about. I know that I told him they were short. They were highly intense. I was living it in the moment, so to speak. It was not like, oh, that was a nice idea. They were highly visual. Like I said, it was even at times, it even messes with my vision, that it'd be so bright. It's like staring into the sun. Your eyes just won't work for a while. But with that, Jackson, I'll turn it back over to y'all and let y'all decide what y'all may think about this.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, I wanted to mention that your appearance today is in purple.
In purple? Uh-oh.
Is that just no? I mean, your whole outline is in royal purple. Does anybody see that but me?
I noticed that.
Yeah, he's purple.
You're purple. I mean,
I need to get more light in here.
I don't know. Maybe you're supposed to be in the purple.
You
make
ate too
any-
many blueberries. You ate too many blueberries from Willy Wonka.
There you go. I agree. I like that. Oh, let's see if I can light the
No,
plant.
leave it that way. It may be significant here.
Okay.
Did you make any associations at all? Because
I did.
associations came right to my mind when you were talking about some of that.
The first two visions, I associated them back to the dream that I'd had over a year ago, as I thought about them. Just because of in the dream and in the first vision I had, I could, like I said, I could look down, and in the dream it was so crystal, but I could see it moving. I could feel the force of it, but it wasn't affecting me. And it's just like the force that actually hit that wall. The wall went from 3 foot in front of me to, like I said, miles in just the snap of a finger. It was done that quick. It was like there was no issue about it, what worked against the wall. And then, of course, in the second one, it was being bathed in that light again. It was so crystal bright, you couldn't look into it. It was just, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just blinding.
How about with current events or worldly things? Things you'd seen, things you'd heard?
No, sir. I mean, I know we always talk about building the wall as far as like this, this country or whatever. But as far as the things like I've personally been keeping up with, the things that I've been focused on, no, actually, some of the studying like I've been doing, it's been dealing with the communion, like I spoke about, about a month ago. I guess I'm up due to speak again this weekend.
Right.
And it's dealing with that same kind of topic. It's about drawing into a closer union with Yahweh. That's basically where all my studies and even my thoughts, any programmings I've been listening to, they may have talked about maybe some things that were going on, like, of course, all the unfortunate bombings, the killings of Christians, things like that. I haven't really focused on really much of anything else here recently.
How about, well, of course, what came to my mind immediately was that you're communicating in some fashion with a Southwest woman that's obviously, from what you felt and what you saw, some kind of unclean or demonic spirit. And the very fact that you mentioned Southwest, then you're close up to this wall, 3 feet. You can't see much of it. It's right square in front of you. And then all of a sudden it's expanded way out.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that struck me right away, in that that's very much in the parlance of current events when it comes to this invasion that we're in. But you didn't feel any association with that at all?
No, sir. Actually, when it came to the lady from the Southwest, my mom's grandmother is full-blooded Cherokee. My dad's grandmother's full-blooded Apache. So I related it more as to when I looked at her, I saw it more. Like I said, I didn't know if she was like, from the Southwest or Mexican. It was just, or Mexico. It was just, my first thoughts while I was even looking at her in the vision was, is she an Indian? Because just by looking at her, but she didn't have any tribal clothing on. She was standing there in just normal dress. I mean, but
you said earlier she was sitting. Was she sitting or standing? Or what posture was she in?
I'm sorry, she was standing. If I said sitting, then I just misspoke, because she was standing right up next to me. She was just right in front of me. She was probably about my wife's height, I guess. She's probably in the neighborhood of 5'2", 5'3". I had to look down at her just a little bit, but she wasn't very short by any stretch of the imagination.
Also, I wanted to know about the visioning experience itself. What you were praying, but you were completely conscious, and this all came into you. And how did that work?
I was these three while I've been praying. It actually I lost. It's like I told you. It's also, I think I tried to verbalize it. It was like all of a sudden I was living that moment in time. I was consciously praying, but all of a sudden I wasn't continuing to pray. I don't remember continuing to pray. It was like two separate events. I guess that may be how I stepped from one into the other. It was like
what
that
were you
quick.
doing when you stepped in? You were just
Yeah, like I said, yes, I was just praying all three times. It dealt with praying about, like I said, I talked about the communion, and it's really struck me, just me personally, uh, to really have the kind of relationship with Yeshua and Yahweh that I honestly believe they're wanting us to have with them and myself. Personal holiness, I know that's something we talk about quite a bit. That's what I've been praying about. It's about drawing closer to Him, about praying, about holiness. All three, that's the only thing all the prayers had in common, because that's what I was praying concerning each time. It was dealing with communion, dealing with Him being on the cross, and things like that. It was about trying to draw closer to Him.
And physically, you say when you came out of this, your heart was beating really hard?
Yes, sir. That's the reason why I got in touch with you. They're short, but I say short. I don't even know the length of time that I've experienced these visions. I've never looked at, like I said, because when I go into praying, I'm not paying attention to the clock or anything like that. So.
You mean your heart was beating fast and
Yes, sir.
hard when you finished up?
Yes, sir. When I came back, it was like I was almost brought back into this reality.
What was your emotional state when you were in that vision?
When I was in the visions, actually, like I said, in the first one, it was pretty calm, although I realized that I was surrounded total darkness. I did know other believers were around me. I didn't feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't like what you'd call fear, but there was this, we need to be freed from this darkness and moment. And that's when, as I was praying, we need your light of wisdom. And, I prayed that actually, like I said, in that first vision. And, in that dream, not in that vision, but in that dream, pray we need the light of your wisdom. And I had that same calmness in all three of the visions. I was startled by the woman at first. The laughter kind of was a joke. It was like something is wrong. And like I said, when I first had that vision concerning that lady, I was looking out, and it was more of a dry desert area type place. It wasn't ugly by any means, but the laughter just came out of nowhere. And there she was just right up on me.
And you felt cold? What did you feel about this? Did you feel it was good or evil or nothing?
It was the laughter. It was the laughter that's what made me, like I said, it was nothing I've even would say was human. And I've never been a part of any kind of exorcisms or anything like that. I mean, I've watched a couple of those kind of movies years ago, but I normally don't even deal with, I don't watch stuff like The Exorcist anymore, things like that. I've kind of moved away from all that.
Sure.
For my own personal reasons. So it's not like I'm constantly, around those kind of sounds, but it was just, that one startled me. The other ones, like I said, when the wall just blew back, so to speak, I didn't feel like I was about to be blown over. I didn't try to catch my balance. I wasn't, unnerved by it.
Ray,
Yes, sir.
did you think it was a mocking laughter?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Yes, you did.
Yes, I do.
How have you ministered or come under persecution from someone at work?
No, I have not.
Okay, all right.
Lee, I think you hit that pretty well on the head. I mean, what else would that be but an entity coming in a vision when he's trying to find a spiritual way to get closer to the Savior, than this monstrous thing that with the eyes and the laughter that's unidentifiable. These are a couple of the appearances a couple of the ways that you can tell if somebody or something is demonically inspired or not is a physical malformations and vocal languages. You said you couldn't understand or you couldn't hear anything that this thing was saying.
That's right. It was like I could hear the laughter, but when they went to speak, it's like they went on mute. You know, I couldn't hear anything.
That could even be a protection. Maybe you weren't supposed to hear that, whatever it was. Well, we have no doubt that what you experienced was certainly a spiritual vision. I'm wondering what Allison would say about this. She's a person that's had visions before. Get on here a minute if you're there, Allison. Give us your assessment.
Sure. I agree that I was just typing that in chat. I agree that that was probably protection, that he didn't hear whatever that woman was laughing about. I think probably what's the female demon that's so powerful? Shoot. I just had her name in my head, and now I can't think of it.
Lilith?
Lilith. Lilith would be dark-haired and swarthy, if, you follow it back in history.
It might have been Jezebel, too.
Could be, yeah. And I think it was a protection. And I love what you said about how it appeared when he was seeking closeness with the master and more perfect communication. And I believe he was going there because of the white light that you couldn't look at. I think the wall disappearing like that, being shoved away, is really neat because he didn't feel any motion, and that sort of ties in with like a fourth dimensional sort of movement, which I think is possible or normal in the spirit world. So I think that he was taken up or taken into that plane or realm or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to use like mystical words for it, but that's all I have.
Might call it a shift.
Shift, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he got to hear the conversation of, it sounded like the Council of Elders there, and he was dumbfounded, but he can't remember. That's probably good. But when things happen, he'll know this was what they were saying. And that's really all I can think of.
Hey, Jack, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
That has happened to me, where, especially in dreams, and this is one of the things that I do, reasons why I pray at night. I ask Yahweh to protect me while I sleep, particularly in the area of dreams, because I have been attacked by the enemy in my dreams, and you can hear things. And whenever I wake up, there's some things that you can hear, and there's some things, just like you said, Elder Ray, it's like you get put on mute, or they get put on mute, and you don't hear it, or vice versa. I have heard things on the other side from Yahweh's perspective, and where you seeing yourself in certain situations and doing certain things. And the funny thing about this, when I dream, I always can see. Okay, I always can see. And so, pray when you go to bed at night. Pray over yourself, anoint yourself, and ask Yahweh to protect you while you sleep. Protect your mind while you sleep. And, you will begin to recall these things when they happen. I've had things happen here to me. When the enemy attacked my body a couple of years ago, and he tried to kill me. There was a dialogue. You know, I stood up and I realized I was in trouble, and I didn't care whether they heard me 3 blocks down, but I rebuked the enemy, and I heard the enemy clearly tell me, "You want to bet? I'm going to shut your mouth." And even when I was on the ambulance going away, "I'm going to kill you today." And I'm like, "You're a liar and the truth is not in you." So those things do happen in the spirit. And they're things that sometimes the Father will tell you, as I clearly heard the Father tell me when I was in the ER. With all of those people around me praying and talking with me, I heard the Father tell me, "Be quiet," or not an accusation. And that was the end of it. So, yeah, I've had that happen to me as well.
So you're trying to break through, and a wall is thrown up, and an entity is there that is mocking you for your desire to go farther with this. And what did you do? Could you react in any way, or were you just observing, dumbfounded at what you were seeing?
Well, like I said, when it came to the wall, it was like, this wall has to be moved so I can go forward.
Yes.
And then the wall was moved. So yes, I think in that one, I actually did have something that I did, you know. But as far as it dealt with the lady, that entity, I was just thinking, you know, these words, you know, she has no authority, because she went on, like I said, she went on mute. Like I said, I realize everybody, you know, some things we can do in our dreams and all like that. Normally, like, I can read lips. If I'm having a dream or anything like that, I know, you know, some Hebrew, some Latin, some Greek. I don't know a whole lot, but I can be reading in English, and all of a sudden there can be a Latin word there, and in my dream I can read it still because I know the word. But you know, so I have, you know, things like that happen.
Well, you did put up a front there. You made a proclamation, according to what you said in your mind, that she has no authority.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that perhaps that would be something that might have stifled her, but obviously there's some kind of hindrance that's been put up against you getting any farther. But I think that the Father's showing you that you can, and this is just an interim stage in what you're being shown. I think there's going to be more of it coming forth here, and maybe even, as you said, and for me too, working out machine things and problems in your dreams. That's relevant to what happens to me a lot, because I have these dreams that are incredible and show me ways through things that perhaps when you get in a dream state, I don't know if you know about lucid dreaming or not, but if you get in the state where you can make things happen in your dream, either by supplement or just naturally, then this is something I'd sure inquire about. Yeah. This is someplace you could go and find out more. But I think that it seems pretty clear, at least from what dream steering, from what we have heard now, that this is obviously a matter of spiritual warfare that you've met. You didn't go any farther. You didn't hear the word. You saw that the wall was spread way far out. Did you ever get past that wall?
No, actually, I was starting down the into the plateau. I never made it to the wall again.
Well, then again, your environment was a desert environment too.
With the woman, it was, but that was the strange thing. With the wall, it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was like no human had ever been there. I mean, by that I mean there were no roads, no sign of human life or anything like that. It almost, I guess, the Garden of Eden, if you wanted to kind of give it that kind of reference.
Well, you just said you're letting things out here as you're explaining this. You said that there was no wall anymore, and
So it kept going. It was way out there.
you said no human had gone there before. It's another
Yeah, it's what it
thing.
looked like.
Uh-huh.
Yes, sir. Yeah, by that I mean it just wasn't spoiled. I hadn't seen any. Normally, when you look out, you would, I've been over high vantage points, like I'm pretty sure everybody else is. You can see the city lights, or you can see a road cut through something, or whatever. But this, you just nothing. It was just, beautiful land.
It was unspoiled land.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know, Ann, are you here?
Yes.
Are you capable or able to put a little bit of insight here into this?
Well, it's curious. I got here late because I had a client come in just at the wrong time. But curiously, I had a dream last night. You know how you don't really know how long your dreams last, but sometimes they seem like they last all night. Well, this was one of those dreams, and when I dream very vividly, I dream in color, and I dream with much, much detail. It's as if it's an entire life, and I dream huge, huge dreams. I mean, they're just like it has to do with lots of people and lots going on. And last night, I dreamt that I was in the middle, and I've got the whole Rock Kadesh all over me right now. I was in the middle of many, 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 many people, and they were all nations, and they were beginning to fight, and they were committing crimes, and they were being mean to one another, and I was there. It was as if they couldn't see me, but I was there, and I was sitting at a table, and there was a linen cloth over that table, white linen cloth over that table. I was just observing them. And suddenly I began to pray in the spirit. And they couldn't hear me, but I prayed and and Ruach said, keep praying, keep praying. I kept praying, and they dissolved. They just dissolved. It was as if it was the enemy, and the enemy just dissolved. Well, then I woke up, and I was praying when I woke up, and I just kept on praying, went back to sleep, drifted again, and more dissolved. So I had these huge groups of people who were being demonically influenced, and they were just being, and all I was doing was just praying whatever Yahweh put in me to pray. And I don't know if that had to do with, but when I woke up, I asked, what was that? And the only thing that came to my mind was immigrants. Is that a
Was
problem?
what came to your mind?
I'm sorry?
What came to your mind? You kind of faded out there.
The immigrants that are crossing the border. So I've been praying all day because not everybody's bad, but we've got a lot of confusion and a lot of sickness and illness and a lot of evil coming into this land, and there is no way that we can solve this problem. It just no way we can solve this problem unless we commit it to Yahweh. That's my view. And I wanted to say something too about the sleep state. That's our subconscious mind. So I ask him to minister to me as I sleep, because my conscious mind does not interrupt when he's ministering to me in my sleep. But when I'm awake, oftentimes I interrupt and interject my own thoughts and what ifs. And when I'm asleep, though, he's not interrupted.
Yeah, dreams. You have Ray. You have propensity to envision. I've never really had visions, but just about every night I have dreams. I had one a couple of days ago, and I got up and did something very unusual as I recorded what I could remember, and I sent it over to Allison. Would you mind if I played some of it for you? Because some of you are in it.
I'd like to hear it.
All right, let me play some of it. You tell me if it's loud enough for you, okay?
Turn it up a little.
I just awoke from a very, very vivid dream. What's on a... Okay, let me turn it up.
Yeah, turn it up a lot. I can't even hear it.
I think the best thing to do is to go over to share, because that way it'll pipe the music right in.
Yeah, do it like you would normally share screen.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You're in the dream, Bishop Ragesh. It's not a good dream. Okay, here we go. I just awoke from a very, very vivid dream. I was on a healing crusade in another city, in a hospital motel where I had been injured in some way. And I had finished doing a meeting in a large house. And I was concerned. The other Yahad members were sick. They were in the kitchen, and I had been wounded in some way. And I had been given an injection of morphine or something. Ragesh was okay. He was poisoned or something, but he was recovering. He couldn't attend this meeting. And this large, old-fashioned kind of room, a scary place. I was under a power that I believe was the Holy Spirit. I don't know. It was an incredible power. It pointed out people, and it was dramatic, and my voice was dramatic. And sometimes it got a hold of me and picked out of those in the room, because the room became full of people, many, many people, groups of people, after just a very small contingency. But these were not ordinary people. There are contingencies of witches there, circus freaks, deformed people of every kind. There were composites of things and people. There were honest, seeking people too. There were naysayers. There were, I can just say freaks, deformed in every way you could think possible. Human furniture composites and animal composites with humans. And I was going around to these, knowing their names. I could see them. They may have been demons in human form or in freak form. I don't know which. I had most of their names like Howard, and they were wearing name tags, and one by one, men with faces with their heads caved in, and women with incurable diseases, and very elderly women, like ghostly women. And there were, it's starting to slip away now, but I was making pronouncements and prophecies of every type. And some contingencies were hanging on this because it was full of entities. They were hanging on this, and other ones were naysaying, fun making. They were in groups of different types of freaks and all kinds of human-faced things that needed prayer. I saw I saw variations of Professor Smith in this crowd. Variations, I'm saying freak variations. And there were holograms, and there were things to eat and morphine. There, I had been wounded in some way. There was a woman that came into my hospital room. They just got into the bed, a woman that was dying. I told her that I was an evangelist and this was my room and that she had to go. She said, I can't, I know this isn't my bed, but I'm going to lay here anyway. And she was pretty ghastly, and she wounded me in some way with razor blade or some sharp object to the point where I became a patient, but I was able to turn her over to other people that just kept coming more and more in there to see her out. I saw her to the door, and then some nurses came. Donna Sue was there, some cousin of hers was there. They were play acting like they were helpful. They showed up in very respectable dress, and of course suspicions of every type came back, like something is the undercurrent here that's wrong. It was just started in this hospital room that expanded into a house and expanded more and more. Finally, I found myself praying in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach for all these freaks. And I realized I was a freak myself. And at the end, there was a contingency of acrobats that were putting on semi-blasphemous planes. That is to say, they were tumblers, and they would get on top of each other and build buildings of each other right in there and put on short shows, and then they'd all hop down and go back into a room. And they were a local troupe, and Dan Naif was there. That's it. I will be speaking in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, and there were strong powers, old men that were powers there. They had some kind of, well, like I don't know, occult power maybe. They looked completely innocent. And at the end of the dream, before I awoke in a frenzy, there was something like a big television that came on in the midst of all these people. And there's a hologram in that television, and there were evangelists in there, all at a table, and they were putting on a magic show there. And I went up to this television. It's like the people were going to see what I was going to do with this. And I went up, and I thought before I kicked the screen in that I would be damaging somebody's property. And another man was there. Gary Chimo was there. I don't know why. Now it's fading more and more for me. One particular woman had a case of, it's a French word for fruit, fruit, or fracture, which was a kind of a modeling on her face and neck and down onto her chest. And I was saying, in the midst of all this, to her, among all the other ones, come see this case of fracture. That's what it was. Fracture. Come take a look at it. Then the woman bared her wounds on her. I had some kind of a short staff that I felt a huge amount of, not attractive, but the other kind, like a magnet pushing you away, a power that attracted over to this woman with fracture. Because I was going around with this wand. Who is it that I am supposed to be praying for of all these different freaks and everything? And all of a sudden I spun like a needle on a leaf with this thing in my hand around to this woman to my right with this disease and prayed earnestly for her. And I remember one time I prayed in the name of Jesus, and I thought everybody will depart because of this, because they're not going to like that name. They're going to prefer other names more than that. And Jim Baker came out in a hologram, and some other ones like him, as I mentioned before. Now, what else can I remember? Curtains. Big old curtains on old old windows, high, tall windows with multicolored wool curtains of a variety of blues and hues and dusty. Purples. And what else? He said there were a lot of cakes there. Back in the stage where it was a hospital room. Allison was there as well. She was helping with this ministry and was a part of it. And it was that we were in another city on an evangelism trip, and we had no place to go on Shabbat. We done a little meeting here this was on a Friday, and next day was Shabbat day. And I asked of all these people, I need a place to minister tomorrow on Shabbat, and I'll bring my team with me. And is there nobody here that has a meeting tomorrow? Is there nobody? And I went throughout all these different entities and people and demons and horribly deformed things and furniture people and animals and asking, is there no one that has a Shabbat meeting in the morning? We'd be remiss not to show there. And somebody said on one side, isn't this something? Isn't this something we've never seen before? But there were more hecklers than anything else. And the hecklers of this menagerie were people who thought because of their age in some movement, maybe a Hebrew roots movement, that they had spiritual authority. It was haughty. It was haughty. It was attitudes of who do you think you are? Smiling haughtiness on many of these faces. Some were there in beds and stretchers as well. And now it's fading more and more. I can still see it and the feeling. I felt like I had exclaimed at the time because I had been wounded by this lady. And I was wounded in my ankle and in my wrist. Right ankle, right wrist, which were both bandaged. And I had been taking a morphine select. What do they call those things? That the army uses or something. You just punch them in. A nurse would come in with those every so often. And I remember there towards the end when the big television stove-like, fireplace-like structure with the holographs that came on of the table of all these different smug evangelists. I'm forgetting. What happened then? I was very much morphinated because of the pain I was feeling in these wounds. Because this was a big, old, huge house with all kinds of old-fashioned furnishings and so forth on the inside. Still, it was like an occult congregation. Lots of magicians were there with parlor tricks. I remember one in particular. It was a kind of tape-like thing a guy would put in his hand that would cause fire or different things to come out. And there was a whole group of magician-like things there, people there dressed up like gospel quartets that had all kinds of different gadgets to show what were supposedly supernatural things going on. Balls of fire coming out of their hands, and if they'd shake hands with them, something would happen to your hand. But you could feel a little tape or something concealed inside the palm. And there was a big hole in the floor that had a gigantic register grate on it. And it felt like the place was being heated with some kind of coal oil or in some old-fashioned ways. And there were old kerosene lamps in different places that lit the place. The majority of these freaks, if I could say that, were bald and white. And they were all, no matter what their horrifying condition was, they're all seriously seeking, and not even healing. It was beyond healing their problems. They were seeking some kind of blessing. I mean, there were some with gigantic eyes or completely deformed faces or no mouth, wispy hair, wrinkles, some kinds of growths like mold growths all over them. And they were in various forms, like mixtures of primarily pieces of furniture. Like I mentioned, this one, a rolling table with a head on and on and on. Well, that's all I can remember right now. And it's 10:45 a.m. Sunday, the 11th of May, 2019. I'm so afraid to close my eyes, afraid that I'll find this lovely thrill is just a silly illusion. With my eyes wide open, I'm dreaming. Do I deserve such a break? Simply to prove I'm awake. I can't believe that you're really mine. You know, I'm so afraid to close my eyes, afraid that I'll find. I think you would agree with me in saying that it's the feeling during these dreams and visions. And they're always a riddle, something that we struggle with, something that is just beyond the pale of our understanding what it means. Sometimes it takes another person to help sort it out. That's for sure. But as you could hear, I was quite emotional and my eyes were running rivers. Yet, in listening to it again, it almost sounds silly. But it was the emotional feeling when it was going on that you can tell what was anointed and what was not. Is anybody still here?
Yes.
Allison gave a really good interpretation of this, which I asked her to record for me so I could put it on that recording, which maybe you can do one of these days. Do you have anything to say about it?
I can say what I said if you want, but
Sure, briefly.
I actually thought a couple of other things listening to it again, but I can throw that in. All right, what I thought was the whole thing is, to me, was a vision of people who are seeking, just like Ray is seeking, to get closer to the Father, and the way that you're seeing them as freaks and deformed and dead, or half dead, or damaged in some way, or composites, is you're seeing us as probably as the Father sees us, not as complete humans. And it was but the whole thing of it, I thought, was what caused you to maybe have this was the new direction that you're taking with the restoration ministry. All these people are looking for help, plus all else, what you believe in your theology about the kingdom and everything else is different than what everyone else has. Everyone was sick, including the elders. And the me in the dream, I'm trying to help them and help you and getting stuck. Some people were poisoned. You had this powerful voice. You were working with people, trying to help them, but you're still injured. And I think that the morphine aspect had something to do with the injury. Plus, it was probably the way that you were able to see and deal with all these damaged and incomplete people. And it, gave it that fever dream feel. The composite people may be how you see them or how they see themselves, part animal, brute beast, or wild, or part furniture, like useful for a purpose, not quite human, something that fades into the background, but not wholly human, or witches, working against what you say, or old and dying who are maybe hanging on to untrue, festering doctrine, for want of a better word, but none of them perfected as humans. The old-fashioned room with the heavy curtains that were colored, and at one point I think you called it a hospital and then a motel, I saw it as the church, perhaps, or the temple. The sweet cakes and
It's a church. It became a church in somebody's old house.
yeah, okay. So that even makes more sense because it was a church and then it morphed into something that was old and out of date. And the cakes and stuff are like a showbread offering or something in a temple. See, and then people are there for the healing and they're not fully healed. And then they go into this church that turns into an old house and it's full of charlatans. They have magic, gadgets, hologram technology, and it's all fake and shallow. Like holograms are one-dimensional; they're very flat, and the charlatans are religious leaders. The age of the heat source and lamps, they're not clean. They leave pollution in the place. They're real smoky. No pure light, no real warmth. It's very fine in an antique way, like the best and highest that it was at one point, but it's full of these not people and tricksters, many of them seekers. The old lady who got on your bed, who knows it's not her place, could be just women or Jezebel spirits or both who hurt or cut you. But note that you have shed blood on the right foot and the right hand, like the blood applied to a Cohen, or to those healed of biblical leprosy. So either it's marking you as a priest or you're healed of the spirit of biblical leprosy or both. The whole world is seemingly mixed and perverted, even those who are seeking, and the leaders, there are tricksters or acrobats leading to exercises to blasphemy, and it shows this world, this old world, and you're showing them the new world and the way out of it through all their possessions and sicknesses and everything. All the people were just wrong because they were full of this wrongness of the old world, and you're there to help them.
Thank you. I think that's a pretty nice interpretation. In the course of these things, again, there is a certain feeling of urgency. I'm sure, Ray, you would agree with that, and Allison and Ann.
Hey, Jack.
See there, yeah.
Can you tell me, at the beginning of your recording, you talked about an attack that had happened on me, that I was recovering from some sort of attack.
You were in the hospital, and you had been
Right.
attacked or actually poisoned. Somebody poisoned you. You were out of commission, although what you had said is, "I'll be there if I can," but you had the best intention, but somebody poisoned you.
Mm.
There was a sabotage of what we were trying to do. We were in another town, and we were there as a team and working, and it was a sabotage,
Mm-hmm.
as though we were something.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then let's continue this on Sunday night. what surprised me was, about after this dream that I had, maybe the same day or the next day, Ray gets a hold of me. And I thought, oh, man, it's more than coincidence.
I had a dream several days before that that was very odd as well. And hearing both of you guys' dreams, it kind of makes more sense out of mine, but I can share that later.
Yes, save it for Sunday, and we'll do it. You'll be the first one up, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm going to end the meeting now. Keep your comments and your thoughts until Sunday night, because we need a little time to let these things settle, okay? Amen. Thank you for coming.